Hello, everyone. My question is for both Lisa and Mira. I would love to hear your success career journey. Let us know, like, when did you start? How did you start? How long did it take for you to be where you are? And what background of education did you have? Just to inspire us. Thank you. I'll pass it.
Sure, thank you for the question. I can start. It was a lot of zigging and zagging. So my background is actually laboratory medicine and pathology. So I have a master's and PhD in freezing cells and tissues for transplant. So very different from where I am today. So once I finished my training, I was the scientific director of the Comprehensive Tissue Center here with Alberta Health Services. So I provide the scientific expertise to manage the tissue bank. So I did that for 4 years, and I wanted to. It was on the treatment side, and I was very interested in prevention instead. Both are important, but I wanted to try to stop injuries from happening. So then I had, and it was again network and relationships. A friend of mine worked for Alberta Health Services, and he was a medical officer. And I talked to him about are there other opportunities? What can I do? And started talking to different people. So kind of again, it goes back to my relationships matter. And so I talked to different people. He in particular took my resume and, unbeknownst to me, fanned it out to his network and said, "This here is a great person. See what would you who should you talk to and what would you recommend?" So that's what I would almost call a sponsor when people talk about that. I didn't ask, didn't know he was one, but that's what that turned out to be. So someone called me from the government of Alberta and they wanted to start an occupational disease prevention program. So that means they wanted to look at diseases that workers get. So whether they're exposed to chemicals or different types of things. Thank you. And I said, you know what? I don't have that background. My background is in freezing cells and tissue. And it took many conversations with this wonderful director for her to explain to me that my value was actually being able to learn things, being able to understand complex systems, being able to work with stakeholders, all of these great things. I didn't know that I had all those skills. I thought I had credentials. So I took a demotion. I went out of management and I went into the public service in a scientific role. So that was a bit of a zag, right? Sometimes you do have to step back to step forward. And then within a year, then I was promoted to the director of that area. I stayed in occupational health and safety for quite a while in different director roles. So I took opportunities to learn new things, take on new parts of the portfolio. I even got to be lead the North region for OHS inspectors. So these are officers that go into employers' work sites and they, do a review to see whether there's any challenges. So again, very far away from where I am, but it's also about systems. How do you deal with employers? All of those things. And I had a really strong data background from my research and from the tissue bank. And so then an opportunity came up at the Public Service Commission through one of my previous managers. He was now an ADM, and he said, "I have an executive director role. I think you should apply for it." So I applied for it, and I got it. It was great. I got to do all the learning and development for all of the GOA staff. I got to do all of our workforce analytics. So I got to, and I also taught along the way. So I got to apply that. So all these things kind of come and go. In each role, I didn't always get to use all of my background, but I always got to use some parts of it. And then, 2 years later, an opportunity came up for this new role. It was a brand new division that was being created for Newcomer multicultural supports. And I wasn't quite ready. I didn't think I was ready. But again, I had some great people say to me, "You've got everything you need. You've got all the tools in the toolbox. Don't worry about what other people's paths might have been. You've had lots of leadership roles along the way. I think you should go for it." So I decided to do it, and I've been there ever since.
I should be talking in frozen because she's that hard to follow. Thanks for your question. And I thinking now, listening to Lisa, it's yes, it zigzags throughout the entire career, and lots of things give you whiplash. So be prepared for that. Some muscle license. Clearly, my accent is not coming from Red Deer or Pomorka. I'm from former Yugoslavia, but I actually graduated in electrical engineering program. And I was lucky for when I went to university. I always said when I went to university there was war in Yugoslavia. That's not why I'm lucky. The war in Yugoslavia was not a lucky occurrence, but I was lucky to actually get a scholarship to a fancy school in England. And that kind of opened my eyes to different education system than just the one where I completed school. Well, after graduating from engineering, I moved to Canada and in search of country that valued multiculturalism, that had better conditions for women, for young people, for people whose English is not perfect, and probably it will never be. When I came here, and I want to start from the beginning, I got fired from cleaning hotel rooms because I fell asleep in the room that I just cleaned. Then I went and became security guard. Look at me. But Canada gives opportunities to learn something different. And it doesn't matter how you don't look the part, right? After that, I joined corporate world. I was actually serving pies in between and wages on tables. Joined the corporate world, which I have to say I did rise to a leadership role, and I didn't like because of inflexibility, because people were numbers and not people. And one thing that I cared the most throughout my career and throughout my life are people. I really do. And I don't think that will ever change it any titles. So I moved to public service, thinking it's gonna be better. I didn't take the road straight up because I have a little bit of a hectic mind, and I believe wholeheartedly in lifelong learning, except that I'm very scattered about that. So I started in an IT shop, and we were building a huge project. I was one of the people on the project, and we kept being told, well, accounting and money, and we don't have money. So after we built the project, I moved actually to finance shop to figure out what's the big deal about money. So I worked in accounting for some time, learned procurement there. The new initiative came in government called result-based budgeting. And I found a niche area in Service Alberta that needed the result-based budgeting plan developed. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about that, so I'm your top candidate. I'm gonna do it. Convince them actually that I could. I did it, and I had so many outrageous lines probably said in many meetings that I was handpicked to help with another project they were building, which was open government portal, which is now pretty big. After I helped with that, I went back to. I was invited to go back to advanced education, where I joined apprenticeship to start their quality assurance program. That was the very short fling. That in your career, you're gonna come across those jobs and areas where job is great, area is great, you think you're great, but it's not a good fit. And it's okay to recognize that. It's okay to say, what, guys, I don't think I'm the right person for this. Moved from apprenticeship to student aid about 10 years ago, or nine years ago. Ooh, it seems much longer. And I started as a manager of managing contracts and grants based on my previous procurement. But I get bored very easily. So whenever somebody couldn't figure out how to do something, I'm an engineer. I can figure out anything. I love figuring out things. So I would bring some new area to my team. And 10 years later, it grew, actually 7 years later, it grew into a huge team that was way beyond a realm of what a manager should handle. Right? My director at that time moved to a different position, and I considered applying for that director show and decided that I didn't want to. Because at that point, I was really, it was just one of those moments when you feel so tired that you want to pack your bags and move somewhere to Mexico. You never see anyone again. So I was at that point. So those points happen in your career, and sometimes they are really good because I had a guy who told me, don't miss this opportunity because you're tired. You're tired because you carried all of this for so long. Apply for the job, and then we're going to have that conversation. By the time the job came along and I applied and we had the conversation, I changed my mind. And today, every time I see that guy, I blame him for all of my today's problems because it is job that I love in this team that I love, but it has challenges. And you know what? Challenges make me think I can do this. One secret that maybe it's not common to all people is that every time I moved up is because I was mad about something, lack of money, really result-based budgeting. Like, what does that mean? We are public service. Really? Somebody else gonna come and direct all this that I built? So every time I was mad about something, that's why I moved up. And I have to tell you, I'm getting mad again. So we'll see what it's no, firmly done. So if you see me next year, it might look so.
That's awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Do we have more questions? Yes. Gonna right behind your table there. Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Anupama, and thank you all the leaders around me. You all inspired me, so thank you for being here. Lisa, you just mentioned, and that was my question. As a woman, while you are working in the community, what are the challenges you guys see and how you resolve it? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So the question was challenges in the newcomer communities. Is that generally? I think there's a few different ones because, as we know, not all newcomers are coming in the same circumstances. So I think there's what I would say is language is a major challenge. And it's only going to get worse of it before it gets better, to be honest. The federal government's reduced its funding fairly significantly in this space. And so they're the primary funders for that initial settlement when newcomers come to Canada. And then the province provides additional supports. And so I think the language is really, really challenging. And so that's going to be something we're going to have to think about how to be innovative to try to support those newcomers to learn the language to the level they need to be successful. So there is the initial level of English to be able to, go to the grocery store and do some basic things, but to be at a workplace, understand HR policies, health and safety, those types of things, that requires a significant level of English. And so I think that's going to take all of us. That's going to take government, employers, community, post-secondary education. It's going to take everyone to try to support that because we have a significant number right now, given the recent kind of high levels of immigration that are in desperate need of support. So I think that's kind of the major one. I would also comment on maybe on the more skilled side with the credentialing. We're still having, after all of these years, and I mean, I remember being a kid and hearing, my dad also worked for the government. I remember hearing him talk with some of his friends that were newcomers coming in with credentials and then, having to take jobs at that time. It was like at Safeway or, they were driving a taxi cab. And even as a kid, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why can't they just figure it out? And here we are. I mean, I just turned 50. I just turned 51. And I'm working on that still. So I think that's there's some significant work there, but that's actually doable. I feel very confident we're going to be able to turn the tide there over the next few years. And then the other major one I would say is mental health. it's quite significant. There's obviously, people come to the country with different backgrounds, different experiences. Some of them are very traumatic. And not only that, even once they come, if there's not community and connections, then they can start to have issues, even if they didn't have them before they came. And a lot of different cultures have different perspectives on mental health, right? And that's a challenge too, because we have a very specific way of dealing with it here. Yes, we've been able to, in Canada, in North America, we've been able to shift some of the bias that used to exist to a certain extent. It's not all the way there, but I have a therapist. Anyone else wants to admit they have a therapist? I've got a therapist, right? So like it is something that is more common now, and you have a problem, you can go and get support. A lot of newcomers and some of our ethnocultural communities don't believe in that, and so I'm not saying that's the way to do it. Just saying that there needs to be some support, whether that's community, whether that's religious or faith based. So I feel like that's also another challenge.
All right, thank you. Do you have any more questions? We do. Punam's in the last table there. If you move forward, go to the back. Lady by the photographer there.
Awesome presentations, and thank you to all the organizers. My question is about continuous learning. This is in two parts, and it's for both of you. How do you make time to learn new things? Because if you're saying yes to something, you have to say no to something. I mean, what is it that really drives you to make time to learn something exciting that you believe in, and that is something you can apply in practice? Because at this stage, learning skills or which we can add on, which we can apply, then we become better. Like, I'm not doing a PhD degree to pass my time, right? And my second question is, how does artificial intelligence fit in your work? And I'm not just speaking about Copilot. AI is here. So as innovative leaders, hybrid learning, what's your opinion about how we can use AI to our potential? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to start first, so Lisa can take it later. Learning, and this is my personal philosophy, learning is not something that always you have to make time for, or you have to set aside resources. Learning is something that happens to you while you're going by your daily life. Every time you sit in a meeting, every time you talk to somebody who does something different than you, comes from a different place than you, has a different lifestyle than you, you're learning. Our brains are amazing. They absorb everything. And I can tell you, today my title is director. My first title in government was office manager. And I loved going to meetings, not to talk, but to take notes. I was actually a scribe in most meetings. To this day, I believe that's where I learned the most about government, not in any job later. So learning, if you accept learning is something happening to you, and you recognize those opportunities where you really need to eavesdrop or sit in a meeting, take a menial task, just so you can be there and hear the conversation, learning will happen to you. Now, studying is something that you have to set your time for and choose. And I always studied and chose to actively study, learn things that I had a passion for. I told you I worked briefly in an accounting shop, and let me tell you about something I did not have passion for at all. So I admire every accountant out there because they have something I don't: endurance and patience. So if you pick things that you have passion for, if you pick things that when you can draw from your previous learnings, that next step learning is going to go much easier. You're going to absorb it much better. It's really hard to balance when you have family, when you have kids, when you already have a job where you're doing 30% more than your job description. It's really hard. So sometimes you will have to prioritize, and sometimes you will have to find those cracks in your current situation where the light comes through. Okay, I'm doing my job, but there is this little crack, there is this little thing I can do or participate, or maybe just stand on the side and listen, and it's gonna give me some insight. So that's I know that it's not a good answer to your question. Your question was absolutely excellent. I don't think that good answer exists because it's a very personal experience with learning. Artificial intelligence, from co-pilot onwards, there is lots of fear out there that it's gonna replace us, take our jobs. I laugh when I see artificial intelligence doing paintings or writing poems. I don't want it to do that. I want it to do my laundry. Quite honestly. But the level at which we are seeing it now, I don't think that we are close to taking their jobs or replacing us in any way. When it comes to public service, where I exist, policy, big P policy, is very gray area. We have legislations which are black and white, but then it comes policy that's supposed to address all the gray areas, that's supposed to address those moments when life happens. And artificial intelligence is exceptionally dumb for the gray areas. So I think that artificial intelligence, as much as it's learning and writes poetry, will never be able to understand human life. And I truly believe that. So do I use Copilot every single day? Because I still, after 28 years in Canada, struggle with darn articles. I don't know where to put A and where to put the. So Copilot helps with that big time. Big time. But do I use it actually to make the policy decisions? It doesn't have that touch that every single person in my team does.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just add. I'm probably not the best person to ask about learning because I did 13 years of post secondary after 13 years of K to 12. So I have a bit of a passion for it. I really appreciated Mira's kind of differentiation between kind of formal learning where you're from like a studying. So for me, I absolutely I think that kind of on the job experiential listening, learning, observing, that for me is primary. And then along the way, I have looked for either what do I need when in my job, and then what do I need for a job that I'm aspiring to. So, at one point I was leading project managers, and I had kind of informal project management training, let's say, but I knew that they needed a bit more support in that I could be provided, but I had a bit more of that technical background of it. So that's when I went and took some training. I've also done, a lot of different leadership pieces. I'm very passionate about Indigenous learning. So not only have I taken, what Victoria's area has offered within the government of Alberta, but I've also done that also outside because that's something that I feel like I need personally, but also within my job to be able to interact with stakeholders, to understand issues, and to bring that lens into the work that I do. So I think it's really quite individual, but it doesn't need to be, a big formal piece, but you do need to think about and reflect on what are you learning. Something that we use, and I'm sure a lot of organizations use, is what we call a performance agreement. So we map out what we're going to do for the year, and then we write results. What would that look like? So a lot of people think it's like a paper exercise, a checkbox. And I think it's probably the most single important tool that our employer actually gives us, because it's actually for us. So I map out what I'm going to do, but I really make a point of thinking about what is it that I'm accomplishing, how do I need to accomplish it, and that shows me what I've learned in that year. So if I've accomplished, I'll go back to the Foreign Financial Advisory Committee. I have learned a ton on all of the different, the 27 different professional regulatory organizations, and what some of the barriers are. So that's something that I've learned. It's not formal. It was part of my job, but it's really valuable. And I use that even outside of my job. So I think that being able to reflect on that and hold that also kind of motivates me, especially on those, if you're in those jobs where you feel like you don't have a lot to show for it, and you feel like, wow, I just worked a whole week. What have I done? Sometimes reflecting back on those can help kind of keep me motivated. AI, I use it every day. I use it for almost 90% is communication. Just reviewing communication that's going out, like emails, memos. I use it to summarize really lengthy reports, to pull out what's relevant. I use it so government's in session right now. So whenever they're in session, there's transcripts that are sent out, or you can access transcripts where you can watch it. I'll just take these transcripts, I'll run it through Copilot and ask questions. Did they talk about this? Did they talk about that? What came up around here? And we have comm shops that do some of those things, but I also like to do that myself because I have a bit of a broader, I'm thinking a little bit more broadly than maybe what they might be looking at. So those are I think those are great tools. I encourage my staff to do all the time. We do sessions to try to show them how to use it. Any of that summary, pulling information online, it's fantastic. To actually think for you and kind of do that's a different level. It's not quite there yet.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Right. As we are drawing close to lunchtime and a networking session, I'm going to encourage everyone else to actually keep your questions. And do we have a question? Sure. Okay, sure. We'll take our last question for today, for this session.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Anna. Mira, one sentence you said really stood out to me. Flexibility is the cheapest retention strategy. This really stood out to me because we're at a time when women are leaving the workforce in record numbers. And it's not just middle management, it's executive, skilled, educated women. We're leaving. I'm one of those women. I left my 25-year corporate career in November to start my business due to lack of flexibility. I'm a single mom to a neurodivergent child. So here's my question to you. When you talk about flexibility, I want to know, especially since your employer recently mandated everybody come back to the office full time, how do we get leaders of organizations to realize the importance of flexibility, especially for mothers, for caregivers? And how do we keep us gainfully employed in jobs that are valuable and that we're passionate about?
Thanks for your question. I really think lately being maybe last couple of years, that it is the most important tool in retention. It's also very important tool in attraction. We're sitting in interviews where people say, how flexible are you? Can I work from home? When my employer made that decision, I really don't want to. I'll be honest with you. My first visual that I got was probably a group of old guys sitting around saying, "We need to bring them back to the office because back in my time everybody was working in the office," and that was a reaction from me. I know that they probably incorporated many things. Majority of public service works in downtown. There is a small business association or commerce chamber of commerce probably have really strong influence, right? And having nearly 20,000 people being back in downtown buying lunches, paying for parking, buying coffee, will have a big dent on the bottom line. I understand that standpoint completely. However, when the employer instructed everybody to return to office full time, there was one sentence that jumped at me, and it said that flexibility can still exercised at the discretion of manager. So to me, that means something completely different. Now we are creating discrepancy across government. You have managers who say, who hold the line and they don't exercise any flexibility. If you have a medical appointment, you have to take a day off. And then you have managers who say, hey, I manage workload, I don't manage people, I don't hire children. So you are an adult and I have respect for your expertise. I have respect for your sense of accountability. So I'm going to trust you because I trust my employees. This will have to even itself out somewhere along the way. And I think that the way to do that, the way for the leaders of today, for people in key positions of today, to do that is when we are hiring the next generation of leaders, when you're hiring for leadership positions, don't hire just for technical expertise. Because you can teach anyone anything. I'm an engineer who taught procurement, who learned procurement, learned accounting, and learned publishing, and learned all bunch of things I never thought I would. You can teach anyone anything. You cannot teach people to treat people right. And this is, I think that the shift has to happen there. We need to focus on the leaders who will build their teams based on trust, based on skill, who will give flexibility, who will understand that that flexibility will get them more outcomes than any rigid policy will. Basically what I'm saying with lots of words, I don't have a solution. I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But when I have a chance to exercise flexibility, I still will. Because I know that I'll do something.
Thank you. Great.
Marie, could I just add just two things? Just because we're a room full of women, I would also add that we need to have the people that are making the decision have that perspective. So that is in two places. One is our political appointees, and the second are the CEOs and the leaders of organizations. So until we get people either at those tables bringing that perspective, or from lived experience, or as an advocate, that is the only way that those things I think are going to change.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you want any more questions? You have one question? Sure thing. Microphone. Do you want to stand up and state your name?
I don't know if this. Oh, it is on. Oh, okay. I'm Kushi, and I have a question for Mira. Slightly political, but I feel like the push for equality always is. I was wondering what your thoughts on the teacher strike and the upcoming nurses strike is, considering that those professions are primarily women.
You're trying to get me fired. Everything we do is politics. Let me start. With that, I always laugh when people say, I'm not into politics or I don't talk politics. And I wonder, why don't you? Because everything we do is politics. So I appreciate your question. I do very passionately believe in bargaining rights. I respect right of teachers. I respect right of nurses or anybody else to exercise their bargaining rights. That's how we get what we get. I'm advanced education is post-secondary level. It's not education. I do think that I do think that there is lots of areas of improvement in how we approach, how government approaches bargaining process, but also in what do we bargain for in those processes. And I'm going to stop there. I can share my private thoughts about outcomes of that strike maybe at the networking session. Women are largely represented in those professions, like I said in the speech and you noted right now. And I think that women staying organized, whether through their professions, their bargaining organizations, or staying organized like this and learning from each other, besides education, is possibly the strongest tool. This is the point, so we can support each other collectively when we understand each other, when we support each other, when we take action together. Collectively, we are much stronger than, and collectively we're gonna make that.
Lisa, did you want to add anything? No, good.